Welcome to the worship services of the First Missionary Baptist Church in Huntsville. We're striving to become one of the most loving churches in all the world. Please join us now for a portion of our worship service.
So the writer of Hebrews says when you want to quit, you're getting tired, you're weary, look up at that great cloud of witnesses around you, before you, and draw inspiration and draw your movement of your adrenaline in a positive way so that you can move on in faith and run your race successfully. Whenever you need proper motivation, look to the heroes and the heroes of the faith experience. Now, not only does it say that, but second thing he says, we need to focus not only on the previous winners, but we need to focus on ourselves. Where you get that from, Julius? It's right there in the text. Since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us, let us lay aside every weight and sin that so easily ensnares us. Focus on yourself. Focus on yourself because you need to drop some stuff. You need to lay aside some stuff. Lay aside, he said, what? Every weight. Well, he got that idea from the athletic world of his day. This writer of Hebrews was a lover of sports, perhaps even as I and as you. And you all do love sports because some of you be here today if you didn't. That one went over somebody's head fast. You got me? Thank you. You felt me. Lay aside every weight. This man was drawn from the athletic world. Those runners in the Olympic runners and others who ran races, they would put on weights around their ankles, and they would practice during the week with those weights around their ankles, and they would run with those heavy weights around their ankles because they were building up the muscles in their legs and building up the muscles in their bodies, because when you run, you not only build leg muscles, you build heart muscles too. It's like my doctor told me one day when I had gone for a checkup. My doctor said to me, that was some years ago now, he said, Julius, this medicine that I'm giving you is good for you, and keep taking it, but this medicine won't help you as much as walking. He said, walk or die. I said, buddy, I get you. I didn't say buddy. I said, doctor, I get your drift. I'm still living, so I'm walking. They want these weights to build up their muscles. But then on the day when they ran the race, they took the weights off. They laid them aside. So the writer of Hebrews gets that idea from them. Lay aside the weight so you can run with ease. You can run like that raised horse. You can run like a rabbit. You can run fast. Lay aside the weight, because the weight does what? The weight slows you down. On the day of the race, you don't need the weight. You use it for muscle building, but the day of the race, lay it aside because it slows you down. So then he's saying to us, whatever weights we have that are slowing us down, lay them aside. And may I just name two for you this morning? Some of us need to lay aside the weight of bad attitudes. You want to get slowed down in a race, just let your attitude get bad. And that's why some folk not even playing football today. They cuss the coach out. Bad attitude. I could name some that, I wouldn't dare do that. Lay aside bad attitudes. Because whining and pining and moaning and groaning won't get you anywhere. It'll just sap your energy. Lay it aside so you can run your race swifter. Some of us need to lay aside bad appetites. We are what we eat, spiritually and physically. We are what we eat. We need to watch our appetites. Paul was writing to, really he was speaking, Luke wrote it. Paul was speaking to the elders at Ephesus in that 20th chapter of Luke, and he said to them, take heed unto yourselves and unto the flock over which the Holy Spirit has made you overseer, to feed or to shepherd the flock of God. But I'm not interested in the second part. I'm interested in the first part. He starts out by saying, elders, take heed to yourselves. In other words, focus on yourself. Focus on your physical being. Are you feeding yourself properly? Eating properly, you know? Are you exercising properly? Are you getting enough sleep? They're writing more today on sleep than I've ever heard in my lifetime. Talking about how much sleep we old folk need. And how much sleep middle-aged folk need. And how much sleep young folk need. And when we don't get enough sleep, it comes out in strange ways. And sometimes, you know, when you're sitting beside somebody, Reverend Lindsay, in church, and they are irritating you, just ask them did they get enough sleep last night. Lay aside bad attitudes and lay aside bad appetites because they'll slow you down. And he said, not only lay aside every weight, but and the sin. Now, the sin of the Hebrews was distrust. It's in the book, unbelief. They had begun to wane away from Jesus, the centerpiece, as I preached about a few weeks ago. Wane away from Jesus, who was the center of their salvation, and sliding back into Jewish ceremonies and Jewish rituals and Jewish rites and the Jewish law because they didn't want to be persecuted. They wanted the easy way out. And the writer of Hebrews had to suggest to them, no, Jesus is superior. Don't turn from the superior to the inferior. Hold on to him. Don't distrust Jesus. Don't let your unbelief move you away from Jesus to something that's less than Jesus. Hold on to him. So that sin was basically a sin of distrust. Now we've got many sins, and I don't have time in this sermon to talk about all our sins. I don't have time to talk about all of mine, let alone yours and mine. But I tell you this much. I don't know of a worse sin than distrust. Now, you may look at me and say, you crazy, man, because I don't know what you're talking about. But you tell me any other sin that will get you in hell other than distrust. The writer of Hebrews says it right there in chapter 11. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. You must believe that he is and that he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. That means without faith, you can't go to heaven. Without faith, you can't be saved. Without faith, you can't know Jesus. Without faith, you cannot walk with Jesus. So I don't know of another sin worse than distrust, because distrust is the opposite of faith. You understand where I'm coming from? Right out of the Bible. Watch that distrust. It'll get you in trouble. It'll get me in trouble. Every time that we have distrusted God, we've run into trouble. Anybody in this house this morning? Every time we have allowed unbelief to grasp our lives, we've run into trouble. The devil whips us with unbelief. It's almost like he invented the word. Let's not be too long. Not only should we focus on the previous winners and focus on ourselves, that we lay aside the weight and the sin, but finally he says we ought to focus on Jesus. Where's that in the text? There it is. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. The man says to us, when you're running your race and you get weary, you get tired, and all of us get weary, and all of us get tired sometimes. I mean, we get tired of ourselves. I mean, have you ever gotten tired of yourself? I've gotten tired of myself. Boy, what's wrong with you? Why are you thinking like this? Why are you acting like this? Why are you saying what you're saying? Are you a fool? And if you get weary with yourself, you know you're going to get weary with somebody else. Because folk will rub you the wrong way. Somebody said they'll get on your last nerve. I mean, sometime in church. A holy place. They'll get on your nerve. By the way, visitors, if you ever run across a member in First Baptist that irritates you while you're visiting here, don't leave till you come back and talk to me. Give us a second chance by coming back and talking to me. And I'll sit and smile with you. I'll tell you what caused them to do what they did. And then if it's necessary, I'll bring them in and let them do what my daddy used to do. When we'd mess up at home, my dad would say, look here, boy, you messed up. You hit your sister. You know you don't do that in this family. We don't hurt each other. Say, come here. I'm going to put myself in it and not you, Chucky. For those of you listening, Chucky's my brother. Come here, Julius. Come here, Doris. Doris is my sister, the one next to me. We were competitive growing up. She thought she was smarter than I. So sometimes I didn't like her. I'd hit her. Come here, Julius. What'd you do that for? What'd I do what for? I want you all to make it up. Kiss her, kiss her, kiss her. Boy, you talking about hate. Sometimes even your family members will get on your last nerve. But when you get weary and folk are getting on your last nerves and you're getting tired and you're slowing down, he said, look to Jesus. He went through some hard times while he was running his marathon. He went through some difficult days. He faced some hardships and some handicaps. Look at him in the Garden of Gethsemane. What's he doing? He's facing Calvary. The excruciating pain of Calvary. The agony of Calvary. And what does he do? He goes into the Garden of Gethsemane and he bows down before the Father. He said, Father, let this cup, this bitter cup of Calvary, let it pass from me. I don't feel like drinking it. Nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. Every once in a while, when you get weary on your journey, running your marathon, look up at Jesus. He's the author and finisher of our faith. He's the builder of our faith. He's the architect of our faith. He's the pioneer of our faith. He's the originator of our faith. Look to him. He can handle your faith journey for you and with you. Not only do we need to look to Jesus because he is able to help us in our times of weariness with the journey, because he depended on the Father. But also look to him because he inspires joy in us. He went through what I call anticipatory joy. Text says that he handled the cross. How? Because of the joy that was set before him. He endured the cross because of the joy that was set before him. You see, there are times when the journey gets so hard. There are times when it looks like your muscles have just lost their strength, and you don't feel like going any further, and you need some help. Look to Jesus, because while he was going through the pain and agony of Calvary, he was able to handle the pain because he knew it was going to be some gain. If you want to handle your pain, look at your gain. Where was his gain? The gain was beyond the pain. The pain was at Calvary. But who for the joy that was set before him, the joy of resurrection, the joy of Sunday morning. He was going through the darkness of Friday when he was going to be beaten, when he was going to be stuck in the side with a sword, when he was going to be mocked and jeered by people, when his own disciples would run off and leave him by himself. He was going to have all that pain, spiritual pain, mental pain, physical pain. But he looked beyond Friday and saw Sunday morning. And because he could look beyond Friday and see Sunday morning, he had joy on Friday because he was anticipating what was going to happen Sunday morning. He had what I call anticipatory joy. But not only did he have anticipatory joy, but amidst anticipatory joy is conquering and winning joy. You see, sometimes you got to run the race and keep running it in tough times and difficult days, because you're going to win after a while. And because we know that Jesus has already been a winner, we're going to win through him. And we're going to win with him, because when Jesus won on that Sunday morning, he had conquering and winning joy. Because here's what he said. He turned to old death and said, "Old death, where is your sting? O grave, where is your victory? All power in heaven and in earth is now trusted in my hand." And so he had anticipatory joy. He had conquering and winning joy. But finally, he had reunion joy. That's why the author closes by saying that Jesus, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is what? Now seated at the right hand of the throne of God. He's gotten home at last. You see, my dears, you ought to keep on running, run in faith with Jesus, because after a while, you're going to get home. After a while, there's going to be reunion joy. Jesus went home and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Now, here's what the writer is trying to tell us. When he sat down at the right hand of the throne of God, that doesn't mean he just sat down and became idle, but sat down there means he went home for reunion. He went home to be reconnected with God, and God's right hand represents his power. He's seated at the right hand of the throne of God. He's seated at the part and at the position of power. He's seated amidst all of God's power, and because he's seated amidst all of God's power, when it looked like he's idle and seated, he's busy interceding for you and for me. He's busy interceding for all the children of God. He's busy because he's won the victory, and he's sat down. He's gone home for reunion. And on my way to my seat this morning, may I tell you, I'm glad that one of these days, when it's all over, there's going to be a reunion in heaven. I'm going home where there's going to be a reunion. I'm going to meet Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I'm going to meet Moses, Joshua, and the judges. I'm going to meet David and the kings. I'm going to meet the prophets, all of them, and I'm going to meet John the Baptist, and I'm going to meet Paul and Silas, and I'm going to meet Augustine and Luther, and I'm going to meet Martin Luther King Jr. and others of the movement, and I'm going to meet my parents, Daddy and Mama, and I'm going to meet some sisters and some brothers. I'm going to meet relatives and friends. I'm going to meet members of First Missionary Baptist Church, and that's going to be a grand reunion. But the reunion will not be over until I meet Jesus. I want to meet Jesus. That's the one I want to see. Just to behold his face. That's all I want up in heaven is just to behold his face. And I heard another hymn writer sing, and I like the way he put it. Oh, I want to see him look up on his face, there to sing forever of his saving grace. On the streets of glory, let me lift my voice. Cares all past, home at last, ever to rejoice. You talking about joy? Oh, joy! It's gonna be joy over there. Anybody in here this morning understand what I'm talking about? You don't know joy till you go to reunion joy. You don't know joy until you meet Jesus on the other side. Let me close. Let me close. I'll tell you this. I heard some fellas one day. They were drug addicts. They were talking to each other. And they said, man, it's nothing like reaching a high. Man, you don't know what a high is until you put this needle in your arm and let the substance run in your veins, and it runs all the way up to your brains. And man, you're talking about a high. It's a high. And you know, it was so high the first time I took it that ever since then, I've been sticking myself trying to find that high again. I want to tell you this morning, on my way to my seat, they found the high, but they didn't find it but one time. They couldn't exceed it, even though they kept on trying to find it. But oh, when I see Jesus, I'm going to find a high. I mean a high, high, high. And you know what? The high is not going to stop. I don't have to go back trying to find a needle to find it the second time and the third time and the fourth time and the fifth time, the 10th time and the 20th time and the 40th time. But every time I look at Jesus, it's going to be a high, because just to look at him is to see the high. Just to look at him is to feel the high. Every time I look up at his majesty, I'm going to get mesmerized all over. Every time I look at his glory, my high is going to be there. It'll never go down. Every day it's going to be a high, a high, a high. Somebody said, Julius, when is the high going to come down? Somebody else said, when we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we have no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. High, 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 glory, 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 all around me, glory, in the back, glory, in the front, glory, on the side, glory, all around. Nothing but glory, 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 hallelujah. Doors of church stand open. See if anybody who wants to find you high in Jesus. Doors of church stand open. Invitation is extended because Jesus extended it. He gives us a high that we experience on this side, but it gets higher on the other side. And we never come down from the high. Don't need second and third and fourth shots and doses. Just his glory keeps us on a high. By letter, by Christian experience, candidate for baptism.